Trump's response to that reporter was a terrible slur. And a major statement about what's going on in America right now. Why did Trump and MBS get along? Well, they're both authoritarians. One is far more brutal than the other. But you know what? They're soulmates.
Both the House of Representatives and the US Senate have passed a resolution to make the Jeffrey Epstein files public. The House voted 427 to 1 in favour. The Senate agreed unanimously.
The votes follow Donald Trump U-turning by saying the files should be released, but the issue clearly makes him uncomfortable. The president got tetchy with a reporter who asked him on Air Force One what paedophile Jeffrey Epstein meant when he wrote that Donald Trump, quote, knew about the girls. This is part of his answer.
Jeffrey Epstein and I had a very bad relationship for many years. But he also saw a strike because I was president. So he dictated a couple of memos to himself. Give me a break. You got to find out what did he know with respect to Bill Clinton, with respect to the head of Harvard, with respect to all of those people that he knew, including J.P. Morgan Chase.
Sir,
yeah, Jennifer, go ahead. Go ahead.
In the file, Venezuela, sir. Why acting as a...
Quiet, McGee.
So at the end there, it's extraordinary when you see that, because when you first hear that, he didn't say that, did he? Well, he did. He said at the end, quiet, quiet piggy, to Catherine Lucy, a Bloomberg reporter who was trying to ask him more about Epstein.
It wasn't the president's only irritable moment with the media over the last couple of days. During Donald Trump's Oval Office meeting with Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, the two men answered questions from journalists.
Mr. President, is it appropriate, Mr. President, for your family to be doing business in Saudi Arabia while you're president? Is that a conflict of interest? And Your Royal Highness, the U.S. intelligence concluded that you orchestrated the brutal murder of a journalist. 9/11 families are furious that you are here in the Oval Office. Why should Americans trust you? And the same to you, Mr. President.
Now, who are you with?
I'm with ABC News, sir.
You're with who?
ABC News, sir.
Fake news. ABC fake news. One of the worst in the business. But I'll answer your question.
Thank you.
I have nothing to do with the family business. I have left, and when I've devoted 100% of my energy. What my family does is fine.
Good question, by the way, by that reporter. I thought
amazing strength of character
to look at MBS in the eye and ask that question was interesting. Trump went on a little bit more on that defence of his family business, but in the end, the president did give an answer to the question about the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, defending the Crown Prince, and then Mohammed bin Salman, who was sitting there, also addressed the issue and the Saudi involvement in the attacks on 9/11.
As far as this gentleman is concerned, he's done a phenomenal job. You're mentioning somebody that was extremely controversial. A lot of people didn't like that gentleman that you're talking about. Whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen. But he knew nothing about it, and we can leave it at that. You don't have to embarrass our guest by asking a question like that.
Just you ask, Mr. President, you allow me to answer. I feel painful about, the families of 9/11 in America, but, we have to focus on reality. Reality based on CIA documents and based on a lot of documents that Osama bin Laden used Saudi people in that event for one main purpose, is to destroy this relation, to destroy the American-Saudi relation. That's the purpose of 9/11. So whoever buying that means they are helping Osama bin Laden's purpose of destroying this relation. He knows that strong relation between America and Saudi Arabia, it's bad for extremism, it's bad for terrorism. And we have to approve him wrong and to build our relation, to continue developing our relation. It's critical in the safety of the world. It's critical against extremism and terrorism. About the journalists, it's really painful to hear, anyone that been losing his life for no real purpose or nothing illegal way, and it's been painful for us in Saudi Arabia. We've did all the right steps of investigation, etc. in Saudi Arabia, and we've improved our system to be sure that nothing happened like that, and it's painful and it's a huge mistake, and we are doing our best that this doesn't happen again.
There we go. That was MBS there. Bill Law is the editor of Arab Digest, and he met Jamal Khashoggi in the early 2000s. He joins us now. Bill, morning to you.
Morning.
Things happen, said President Trump, but had nothing to do with MBS. Can President Trump credibly brazen that out, do you think?
Well, yeah, there's two parts to that question. I mean, it's emphatically wrong to make that statement. Mohammed bin Salman was very much involved in the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Can Mr. Trump brazen it out? Well, Donald Trump brazens many things out, and I think he probably will, because what's at stake here is the relationship, the family business that the Trumps have with Saudi Arabia, the fact that the Saudis need and want a connection with America. They want a security guarantee. They want to develop their AI industry. They want investment in Mohammed bin Salman's mega projects that are stumbling very badly. And on the U.S. side, of course, the Mohammed bin Salman said, "Well, we pledged what, 600 billion, and we're going to make it a trillion investment in America." So they both come out of this saying, "Well, we need to keep this relationship strong. We can set aside the brutal murder of Jamal Khashoggi, the journalist who was killed in 2018 in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul." It's a terrible situation when the president of the world's most powerful, still a democracy, some would argue it is no longer a democracy, can simply dust away the brutal murder of Jamal.
There has been an extraordinary rehabilitation of both MBS and Saudi Arabia more generally over the last few years. How have they done it? How have they managed to? Because the 9/11 thing was one thing. The majority of the people who attacked American 9/11 were Saudi. Saudi has terrible human rights record. Its involvement in Yemen was widely criticised for its use of double tap strikes and things like that. And yet, I would say the last 2 or 3 years, the predominant noise coming out of Saudi Arabia is about investment. It's about football. It's about other sporting events and other cultural events. How have they managed to rehabilitate themselves?
Yes, well, it's a multi-pronged offensive. Really, it's important that you mentioned sport. Sport has become very much a part of that rehabilitation process. Of course, the purchase of Newcastle FC was part of that rehabilitation. Another part of it is that Saudis have gone on a massive PR offensive in major capitals across Europe and certainly in North America, to put the word out that the Saudi Arabia has changed. It's open for business. It is a modern and moderate society. The fact of the matter is there are thousands of political prisoners in Saudi jails to this day. There are continuing domestic abuse going on, as has been the case, for many years. What we in the West have decided is we set that aside because of the commercial interests, the opportunities that may present themselves to develop our links, our commercial and economic links. I think that's why it's happened. It's happened on both sides. It's convenient for both sides to set aside the egregious excesses of Mohammed bin Salman.
And have things got better though? I mean, from a low base, we all concede that point. Is there any truth that things are better in 2025 than they were in 2015, 2005?
Well, look, the biggest area is what Mohammed Salman has done with women. Women now can work openly. They can share office jobs. When I was in Saudi Arabia, women could not work in an office with men. Many women simply were not allowed to work. That's changed. Women can drive. That's touted as a great success. Yes, that's true. But there are many women who are still in prison in Saudi Arabia, and the rights that Mohammed bin Salman gave to women were very much him giving, and he made that very clear when he arrested Loujain Al Athlul, who was one of the women activists who dared to challenge the fact that women couldn't drive, and she was extradited from the United Arab Emirates and placed in a terrible situation in a Saudi jail in Riyadh, allegedly tortured by the chap that led the squad that killed Jamal Khashoggi, Saad al-Qahtani, who's very much prominent now. The fact of the matter is the people that the MBS claims to have held responsible were sentenced in a court that no one was allowed access to. They're all out now. They're all basically remained very close to Mohammed bin Salman, particularly Saad al-Qahtani. We are in a situation where we've set aside some very basic parts of our democracy, and as you said, the reporters who asked the questions. I mean, Trump's response to that reporter was a terrible slur, and a major statement about what's going on in America right now. Why did Trump and MBS get along? Well, they're both authoritarians. One is far more brutal than the other. But you know what? They're soulmates.
Yeah, and you got that sensation actually listening to that press conference in full, just how much they did get on at that level. Bill, really interesting stuff. Thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
That's Bill Lawler, the editor of Arab Digest, talking about our money talks when it comes to Saudi Arabia. And we talked a lot about this when it comes to sport. You just see it a lot that, you know, every event, the Saudi Comedy Festival, you know, any major event involving pop stars or boxing or football or anything where the West can gather together to spend some money and be cosseted. Saudi's in the top 3 locations in the world now. It used to just be Dubai in the Middle East, and now it's Dubai and Riyadh, isn't it?
It is difficult though, because what MBS was saying in that press conference is right. The relationship between Saudi Arabia and America is important, and you know, Saudi Arabia plays a huge role in that region. I mean, we've spoken about Saudi Arabia so much over the last couple of months in relation to what's happening in the Middle East and the peace project, and you know, whether or not.
And he didn't give any commitments on that, did he?
No, and there were no commitments on that. But it's very, very difficult to get around what we're talking about with Jamal Khashoggi, in the sense that this is not, I mean, the way that Mohammed bin Salman put it, it was, we've got processes in place to make sure things like this don't happen again. Well, this was the planned murder, dismemberment and basically disappearance of a journalist on a date which was, he'd been asked to go in. I mean, it was a planned thing. This was not an accident. This was not something that was, you know, out of control. It was very carefully planned, and so it's really difficult to hear that as the sort of excuse for it not happening again.
Money talks is the other thing you take from that, and maybe we're naive to present that it hasn't always been the case. It's just very blatantly put in front of our faces.